For people who interview potential candidates for high-level positions, what was the worst interview you conducted? I asked an engineer, "What do you love about engineering?" And they paused for a long moment, and then told me they didn't love anything about it. I panicked, and tried to save it for them, and said, "Oh, what about the team you're on right now?" And they said, "Oh, my team is great. But I don't think I want to be a software engineer anymore. I don't think I like it at all." At this point, the interview was dead, and we had a policy not to end early. So, I asked them, "What's something you do love?" And we talked about knitting for 45 minutes. It was really fun. They didn't get the job. A friend of mine was interviewing a candidate for a customer-facing managerial position, public university, think head of department kind of role. This woman was adamant about being the opposite of a people person, said she prefers to work alone, the position is basically half delegation, and the other half is collaboration, and said her biggest weakness was trying to relate to those who reported to her. She didn't elaborate, and didn't seem to understand that she was giving the literal worst answers possible at every point. The most awkward part was the fact that when no one was hired for the role, they reposted the job listing, and that woman applied again, and they were required by law to interview her again. The candidate was made aware that no one interviewed was deemed a good fit. Her answers did not change. She only spoke in high-end corporate speak, and non-answers. I didn't have any clue about her as a person, leaving that interview, but could tell she was the absolute wrong fit. Of course she was hired, and has tanked that program. I swear, she has dirt on someone high up, otherwise she would have been removed. So, in the end, she failed to utilize your company's core competencies to create synergy and effect monetary change? Thank you for taking the time to respond to my original message. As you can see, it reached the markets it was supposed to. However, during her tenure, we saw a net decline in staff while revenue grew, due to the vacancies. Go team! I once interviewed a guy for a high-level position. He kept talking about how he lead a viral marketing campaign or something. And I'm like, yeah, but what do you do? We utilized urban market strategies to reach target market, blah blah blah. Yeah, but like, what did you do? We engaged market demographics, utilizing blah blah blah. I don't know what that means. So, like, what did you do? We handed out stickers at concerts. Oh. They hired him, and he became my boss. I interviewed a guy for a head of marketing position many years ago. This guy shows up to the interview, and is immediately smug as hell. We haven't even started yet. He refuses to turn on his camera, instantly remarks how he worked for Facebook, and let it be known that he's the real deal. I asked him, what are the channels for video game marketing? And he responded with, I don't know, does it matter? Astonished, we asked him how he would approach marketing different platforms, and he responded, with lots of money. I asked him if he realized we were an indie company, and he was like, that doesn't matter. Halfway through the interview, the CEO himself finally begged me to stop the interview. We contacted our recruiting firm, and told them he was the single worst candidate we had ever encountered. They dropped him as a client, because apparently, this wasn't even the first time he was a terrible interview. I still remember his name. He ended up going back to Facebook. Seemed like he tested the market, realized he wasn't shit, and then went back home, where he could blend in as a useless Nepo baby. LOL, at my last startup, we hired this person, not likely the exact person, and I wasn't on the interview panel, but it's amazing how far some people have gotten in marketing, with the use Google Analytics to optimize cost per conversion, and then spend more money approach, with absolutely no ability to deviate, or even understand what makes a customer want to purchase a product. As someone who has been in marketing for 15 years, I still encounter way too many people that think it's as simple as, look at the numbers, and do more of the good stuff. It's usually either that, or, we've always done this, and we always get sales, so we need to keep doing it, with zero proof that what they're doing is driving any sales at all. I interviewed a guy for a higher level management position for the company I worked for. Attire was supposed to be business professional. He showed up in a Hawaiian shirt, jeans, and flip-flops, because he thought this interview was just a formality, and he believed his supposed reputation in the industry just preceded him. I had no idea who he was. When he realized we were actually asking questions, he just said, "Trust me, I'm the guy for the job," over and over and over again. It became a running joke for all of us when we'd get a new assignment. I once interviewed a woman who was a Dolly Parton impersonator in her spare time. No word of a lie, she asked what the hours were. I told her they weren't set as such, reasonably flexible, and that I was more interested into what she put into those hours than the hours she did. She replied, "Not 9 to 5, then," and proceeded to start singing that effing song. I swear, she was effing crackers, to be honest. Some guy came in, and he was the spitting image of Mr. Bean. He had a briefcase and suitcase and was dressed in tweed. It wasn't a joke, he was just that way. But me and HR just couldn't keep it professional. He said things like, "Oh, I'm never sick, except at Christmas," when my mom said I was talking to the curtains. HR woman had to leave after that one, and get herself together. Not me, but someone told me about a guy who applied at a director position, and brought his mom with him. Yeah, one guy had his mom on the phone, because she was president of the company, and he thought that would help. Doesn't matter who your mommy is, still have to go through the interview process. Not me but my mother interviewed a guy for their chief safety and security position. They asked why he was leaving his last job after 15+ years. He responds, completely seriously, that he was actually forced to resign shortly after he sent in his resume, because he neglected a final security check at his facility, which resulted in a fire. They asked for more details, and learned that his negligence led to a loss of over $2 million for his former employer, and because no one was hurt, they made a deal that he would resign and forfeit his severance package to boot. When they asked why they should hire him, considering that information, he replied that it was just one mistake, so they shouldn't take it so seriously. Interviewed a woman for a chief product officer role, probably in her mid-40s, for a large enterprise company. I was 34, male. She was so nervous that she was shaking badly, and part way through the interview, asked if she could hold my hand to calm herself. I let her, and it worked, and she calmed down. But given our CEO was a straight-up psychopath, I decided she would probably not be able to handle him well. Not a high-level position, but two of us were interviewing a candidate for a job. He was perfect. Fully qualified, mature, exactly what we were looking for. He was a shoo-in for the job. At the end, I asked him if he had any questions or comments for us. He said he wanted to be honest with us. He was angry at his previous employer, and was suing them over a faked injury. The candidate wanted us to know he was perfectly healthy, and nothing was actually wrong with him. He felt like it was the right thing to do to tell us. Boy, we dodged a bullet. Not me but my mom was part of the interview of some high-up position in the company she worked for. She said this one woman came in and didn't seem nervous or anything, and did fine in the interview, not particularly good, but fine. Then when they walked her out, and came back to discuss their notes of her, someone noticed a weird smell. Turns out, her chair was soaked with pee. She just pissed all over the chair onto the carpet below, but because of the layout of the room, no one noticed. She was wearing a black dress, so no one noticed when she walked out by looking at her. She could have easily asked to use the bathroom, but didn't. They had to throw out the chair and get the carpet professionally cleaned. She did not get the job. Senior engineer role, in person, right before the pandemic. Guy kept steering all his answers to technical questions back to the time he'd spent with Peace Corps. After the third time, I just let him ramble. When we were done, I offered to toss his empty cup, and he was weirdly protective of it, like insisted it was too much trouble, and I could just show him the kitchen on the way out. Sure, whatever. Guy washes his paper cup before throwing it out, and leaves. In our follow-up meeting to discuss the candidate, our director was pissed, because the guy wouldn't stay on topic, and if he didn't know any better, he'd think the candidate was drunk. And then it clicked, as to why he'd been so odd with the cup. We did not make an offer. I was chair of a committee to screen a new library director. The candidate came in, and was dismissive of me from the beginning. It was as if she was insulted that a lowly librarian was interviewing her, instead of a dean or provost. Then during the interview she asked a question which I was answering. She interrupted me, told me I wasn't answering her question correctly, and then proceeded to explain my library to me. The faces of the rest of the committee were hilarious to watch. They gave up on poker faces, and just let their true opinions show. Several just put their pens down, and just went through the motions with the rest of the interview. I'm not sure she was savvy enough to notice. I was hiring for a role, and someone reached out to me via LinkedIn to let me know they'd applied. Totally fine. It turns out he was the son of a former co-worker, which was interesting to know, but not really relevant to the hiring process. I reviewed his resume, but unfortunately, he didn't have the experience needed for the role. His background was in completely different industries. Since I used to work with his mom, I gave him that feedback, and he was totally understanding. His mother, my former co-worker, then reached out to me, pleading her son's case. She even said she'd personally fill in any gaps in his knowledge and coach him through the role, insisting that I give him a chance. Two big problems with this. Having your mom reach out like this makes it seem like you can't stand on your own in the workplace. His mom and I now work for direct competitors. There's proprietary information involved, and she would potentially have access to it. That's a major conflict. Bottom line, don't have your mom reach out for you in a job application. And definitely, don't bring her with you. If he took it well when you told him, I'm willing to bet he did not know his mom was reaching out to you. No, I actually think this issue is more on the mother than the candidate themselves. I once set up an interview with someone for a lead position at a company I've since left. Right from the start, they sent me a snarky email saying, if you're going to post a job, at least make sure the people you mention actually work there. I was confused, so I asked them to clarify. They responded, claiming the name of the company's founder and director, listed in the ad, wasn't accurate, and that no one went by that name in the list of employees on the website. Confused, I double-checked our website, and right at the very top of our Meet the Team page has the name and photo of the company director, which matched the name listed in the ad. I therefore went back to the candidate and confirmed that the name of the director on the job ad was indeed correct, and apologized if they misread this. They responded, completely unacknowledging my response, to confirm their interview time. Weird, but okay. Fast forward a few days to the interviews, and we are conducting the initial rounds via Zoom. The candidate from the email tried to join the meeting 45 minutes before their scheduled time, while I was interviewing another candidate, so I declined their request to enter, and intended on giving them a call, once finished, to see if something happened, or they needed to meet earlier. Before the other interview even ended, I received a rambling email, where they berated me for not letting them in early, and threatened to report me to company director's name. I simply replied, we don't have anyone by that name working here, and then blocked them. Edit, this was during COVID, when Zoom was just starting to take off. Interviewed a lady for a senior data science position, who continually said things like, I am a perfectionist, if there is something I don't like, I will do it myself. I have rewrote almost all my old company's policies. The interview went from, ooh, this lady really likes to get shit done, to, ooh, this lady is going to be in everyone's shit. Senior engineer position. She just straight up typed out questions in ChatGPT, and read them verbatim. She told us, I don't know what KQL is, but then gave us a dictionary answer, about 3 seconds later, on Log Analytics workspaces, and the basis of KQL, as a language. She wasn't even good at cheating. My company has started to get worried about this. We've had graduates get hired, who turned out to have very little actual knowledge of the subject they purportedly got a degree in. Lots of cheating going on in college, especially where coursework is a good chunk of the result. I actually had my stalker come into my office, responding to a hiring notice I'd posted on LinkedIn, after the position was already filled. He was just trying to get access to me. Security escorted him out. He ended up getting deported, after police paid a visit to his actual workplace. I'm a senior engineer at our firm, and often sit in on interviews to gauge technical prowess. We had some kid come in, fresh out of college, and it was evident he read or was given some advice to come off, demanding the if you know exactly what you want, people will respect you type of thing. It was almost comical. He came in and said things like, look, we all know the back and forth, the bottom line is, I'll help progress this business and take you in new directions. He was also saying things like, I'll need you to stock Pete's dark roast coffee in the kitchen. I like my lunch time around 2 p.m. I need vacation time available immediately. Mr. Confidence turned into Mr. Confidently Rejected on the spot. At one point, my boss even asked, "Are you always like this, or are you just nervous?" LOL, I never saw a face sink like that so fast. We even gave him pointers to tone it down, or he's going to have a really hard time out there. I was interviewing a candidate for a senior role at a tech company. At first, no immediate red flags when he came in. He was decently dressed, looked clean, and professional. When we sat down to start the conversation, he handed me a pamphlet, like the kind you get at doctor's offices for different disease or medication information. Except this pamphlet had a big picture of his headshot on the front, and he proceeded to walk me through the pamphlet about himself. This includes details of his personal interests, as well as his resume details. I couldn't take him seriously after that, and was trying not to burst into laughter for the entire 45 minutes interview. I interviewed this candidate for a startup. Every time he didn't know how to answer a question about his previous experience, he'd claim he couldn't, because of an NDA. I gave him the benefit of the doubt, until he finally admitted that he had put something on his resume, just so that he gets calls from recruiters. But this wasn't even the worst part. At the very end, he thanked me for my time, and then said, "I hope to work here at X." X was not my company's name. It's not like he mixed us up with some other company, he got it wrong. And I corrected him, and he just casually said, "Oh, that's what you're called?" So, it wasn't a genuine slip of the tongue either. We didn't really have a policy for ending an interview early, when there's no hope at all, so that was a colossal waste of my precious time. IT sysadmin for an MSP, basically, an outsourced IT department for small and medium businesses that can't or don't want to hire a dedicated IT person. MSPs are kind of demanding, more so than your standard IT guy position. Techs can get trouble tickets from any of the dozens or hundreds of clients, all with different server setups and infrastructure. Documentation needs to be on point, and starting off, it can feel like you are drinking from a fire hose, as you learn minor inconsistencies between each system and client. I was the lead tech for a smaller MSP at the time, around 2010-ish, so I would conduct the technical part of the interviews. We were looking for either another senior sysadmin or a senior project manager. An older gentleman, mid-50s, came in, interviewing for a position. He had been the IT guy for his last company, but that company went under, and left him out of a job. The company he worked for never upgraded a single piece of IT infrastructure, unless it broke, and there was no replacement. Because of this, he had only worked with Windows 98. It was honestly heartbreaking, watching this man realize he had been stuck in a time capsule for the past 20-ish years. No experience with Active Directory or Exchange, thought Office 365 was just a fad. The dude was making six figures at his previous position, and he would be making roughly half that at the place he was interviewing for. I watched a man realize that he was living in a little remote paradise for the past 10 years, and emerged into a post-apocalyptic wasteland by comparison. He walked out of the interview, haunted. I hope he found something, and managed to retire comfortably. Not super high level, but I conducted many interviews for senior SA positions. I had thought a good strategy would be to ask about the things they list on their resume, to give them a chance to show off their skills, and impress me. Turns out, this is more of a landmine than a chance to show off. I had one guy tell me he had never used Linux, despite putting Linux admin experience on his resume. His logic was that he knows Windows, so how much different can it be? This happened many times, and it's why I insisted competent technical staff be present at interviews and allowed to question candidates instead of just HR. Edit, SA in this case, is system admin. At my last job, my boss someday hired a new developer and put him on my team. I wasn't in charge, but I had to work with him. This guy was so bad that at some point, I told him I knew he was lying about his CS degree, and that this could have legal consequences. It was just a guess though. He quit the next day, and I told my boss to take me with him on the next interview. In the mid-90s, I interviewed for a web application developer position at Chrysler IT. One of the interviewers kept hitting me with trivia questions, arguments to system functions, things like that. Because I don't have entire APIs memorized, I was danking these questions. Finally, I got annoyed. I figured I'd pooched the interview by this point, and responded that if I ever needed to use such and such function, I would look it up in the support documentation and get it right, rather than trusting my own memory, that the entire point of man pages and other docs was to provide the correct answer, so why would I not use them? Boom. Hired. I was interviewing people for a staff-level software engineering position on my team. For high-level IC positions, you often see a common type of person, someone who moved into middle management, like a director level, at their previous role, but wants to get back to the technical work. This one guy, from Wisconsin, which is important, applied, and had been in management for years. My technical interviews are usually a series of 5 questions that slowly ratchet up in difficulty or complexity, as a way of just level setting. You can't really fail, it just tells me where you land, in terms of experience and title, should we make an offer. In the first question, which is basically training wheels, for anyone who has ever written any code in their lives, the guy just starts saying, "Ah geez. Ah geez," in his thick Midwest accent. He is also muttering stuff like, "I'm blowing it," quietly under his breath. I think it was a full-on panic attack, which I totally get. He then just refused to do any kind of coding live. Again, this is like write a function that multiplies 2 integers together. In any language you want. As we end the call, and he is incredibly contrite, and says, he will follow up, if I send him the exercise via email. I agree, although I know I won't be considering his candidacy, and we part. 2 days later, I get the angriest email from him, saying that technical interviews like that are unfair, and we sprang it on him. The tone was so different, I thought it was another person. Very odd. For a while, I had managerial oversight over our call center. Without giving away too much personal info, we take over 5,000 inbound per day, with between 500 to 2,500 outbound calls, performed by our staff, depending on season, and if anything is broken. Finance related. I'm interviewing someone for a manager role. Not a supervisor, but the person who all of the supervisors would report to. Position needed 5 to 7 years experience, with at least 3 years of call center time, at least 2 years of management, or supervising experience, all the good stuff. It's a Zoom interview, because this is a couple years ago, but this person is visibly drunk. Slurring words, head drooping, the works. I do the introduction, and turn on the recording, and they start off by asking if they'll have to talk to customers, because they refuse to talk to customers, and they told the last guy that. I mean, yeah, you will probably handle some escalations, which I said. They swear audibly, and say something like, okay fine, but I'll need to negotiate a higher starting. I've never taken calls before. What? A waiter or a bartender clips into their background at one point, meaning that they were doing this interview in public. I ask about it and they say, they don't have internet at their home right now. Okay, fine, whatever, and they may need to work out of a coffee shop for the first few months. I say, that's not possible, because we deal with sensitive information, you need a private location. They then ask me if the company is going to pay for their housing, which I say, we can't do. It only went downhill from here. They were probably minutes from face planting and passing out before I ended the call. And because you know this is coming, 3 days after I had HR send out the standard, thank you for your interest, but we've decided to go in a different direction, email and call, they accused me of racism and gender discrimination. I sent over the recording of the interview to legal, with a very big smile on my face. I've been told that legal still shows it to newbies in their department when they need a laugh.